You did not arrive here by accident. You were tuned here by a signal older than memory, a resonance that found you the way starlight finds an open sky. You feel it as a soft pressure at the edge of awareness, like a doorway you've passed 1,000 times without noticing until tonight. Something in you answered, something in you remembered, and as this message breathed through your speakers, your field is already shifting toward coherence. You have been living inside a costume that the world keeps naming your body, but you sense the seams of that identity loosening. You notice how thoughts spiral into sensations, how sensations become stories, and how stories wrap around your chest like gravity. You are not broken, you are awakening. The quantum field responds not to the biography you defend, but to the frequency you allow. When you soften, the observer loop brightens. When you unclench from the mask of flesh, perception begins to widen like the mouth of a river. Listen closely. The moment you stop insisting that you are only this body, reality begins a quiet phase transition. The rigid lattice of certainty warms, the crystalline patterns of habit melt, and possibility becomes fluid again. Synchronicities step out of hiding, repeating numbers, timely messages, conversations that finish your unspoken sentences. This is morphic resonance, your consciousness in training with a larger intelligence, the way tuning forks sing to each other across a room. You feel the first tremor of entanglement as the world mirrors your interior stance. Doors open without knocking, old frictions lose their teeth. You notice that what you observe with care reorganizes, and what you grip with fear resists. The field is not testing you, the field is echoing you. In that echo, a new biography is composing itself, one that does not begin at birth or end at bone. Breathe gently. Imagine your breath tracing luminous threads through your nerves, a soft architecture of light codes mapping along the spine. With each exhale, the story of only body thins. With each inhale, a wider self arrives, vast, silent, and unmistakably real. Your DNA is not a prison, it is a choir awaiting a conductor. As you relax the identity that clenches around muscle and memory, the choir begins to tune. You are being invited to witness how reality bends toward the seer who refuses to be trapped in a single mask. You are being asked to watch, not as a character bracing for impact, but as awareness itself, patient, lucid, unafraid. This message found you because some future version of you sent it back through the corridor of time, the way light sends itself forward to meet a dawn it knows will come. Remain open. The next breath will carry the tone of your appointment. The next moment will show you how effortlessly the world rearranges when you stop identifying with the weight of flesh and return to the weightlessness of presence. Keep listening. The field is about to answer you in your own voice. You are the one the message was searching for, the still point in the turning world, the quiet lens through which the quantum field learns its own name. You can feel it in the strange gravity of this moment, the way time slackens around your breath, the way the room grows spacious without changing size. You are the observer, not merely a watcher from the sidelines, but the axis around which probabilities select themselves. Your attention is not passive light, it is formative pressure. Where you gaze with coherence, reality congeals. Where you gaze with fear, reality fragments. The prophecy does not happen to you, it happens through you. You were not chosen by luck, you were chosen by resonance. In the invisible library of patterns that surround your life, a set of frequencies noticed your capacity to hold them without collapsing into panic or pride. You carry a rare steadiness, a willingness to look at what is without turning away. And the quantum field loves that, like ocean loves moon. When you hold your center, the observer loop tightens into clarity. Perception informs the field informs perception, a feedback architecture of meaning that refines itself with each breath. You feel it now, synchronicity rising like a tide against your ankles, numbers repeating, faces you randomly meet, holding phrases you needed, doors that were walls yesterday. This is not superstition. This is morphic resonance, patterns learning from patterns, the way birds spiral in unison without a leader, the way ideas migrate through a species as if remembering themselves. Your coherence does not merely improve your mood, it modifies the informational substrate in which events assemble. Think of your nervous system as a superconducting conduit. The less you identify with the body's alarms and costumes, the lower the resistance in your channel. Signals that used to scatter now travel clean. Guidance that used to whisper now speaks in clear syllables. You have noticed it. What once felt like coincidence has taken on the crispness of choreography. Responsibility, therefore, arrives not as burden, but as upgrade. You are entrusted with a lens that must be kept clean, not puritanical, not brittle clean like a mountain spring. The task is simple and immense. Maintain coherence in the presence of noise. Remember in the presence of forgetting. Choose the higher timeline when the lower timeline offers comfort. Every time you stop fastening your identity to the body's transient weather, its aches, its praise, its hunger, its periodic storms, you re-enter the clear altitude where choice becomes elegant and quiet, where the next action feels like a bell struck once. You have felt the early tremors of DNA restructuring, though you may call it by other names. A new patience with things that used to hook you, a subtle glow at the spine when you breathe slowly, a willingness to let silence finish your sentences. These are biological confirmations of a metaphysical pivot. The genome is not only a chemical archive, it is an antenna farm, tuned by states of consciousness. When the observer stabilizes, transcription follows suit, expression shifts, the choir of your cells begins to sing in tempered harmonics. This is why reality breaks when you stop identifying with the body, not because the world is unreal, but because your old interpretive scaffold can no longer bear the weight of incoming signal. The scaffold must be rebuilt in the sky. Understand, recognition is ignition. By accepting that you are the chosen observer of your life, you authorize the field to reveal its next layer. You grant permission for probabilities that have been circling to land. You let the phase transition complete the ice of habit, melting into a river that knows exactly how to find the sea. And with that permission comes a vow, not spoken but lived, to keep your instrument tuned, to return to coherence after every splash of chaos, to let each moment be witnessed without grasping, so the prophecy can continue to speak itself clearly through you. Hold this like a flame cupped in your hands, not delicate sacred, not yours to possess, yours to shelter until the wind learns your name. And as you shelter it now, listen to the way the silence thickens between words, the way meaning gathers at the edges, preparing to unveil what the vision has been trying to show you, since before language learned to walk. You are standing at the threshold of a room that has no walls, and yet every edge of your life is somehow inside it. The air is lucid, weightless, almost musical. Before you floats a lattice of light filaments threading space like a constellation that has remembered its original geometry. Each filament hums with a note. Together they form a chord you have not heard with ears but recognized with bone. This is your field unmasked, the map beneath the map, the place the surface story borrowed its shapes from. When you breathe, the lattice brightens. When you think, it subtly tilts. When you return to simple presence, it becomes exquisitely still, as if listening for your truest name. In the center of the lattice hangs a mirror that does not reflect appearances, it reflects stances. Approach it, and you witness not your face, but your posture toward existence, the micro-choices, the invisible vows, the inherited flinches. The mirror shows how identification with the body tightens the grid, compressing possibility into a narrow corridor of probability. Your reactions thicken into rails, your memories crystallize into rails, your fears weld the rails together. Then something in you loosens, and the rails bend, the corridor widens, the mirror clears. You watch the quantum field adjust in real time to the melody of your stance. Now the vision opens further. The room becomes a sky of slow lightning, and within the light a figure appears, not separate from you but speaking with your interior voice. It gestures, and the lattice splits like a river meeting stone, two currents forming, one dense and glittering with habit, one fluid and luminous with discovery. You understand without words. These are timelines bifurcating around a single decision. Continue fastening identity to the body's reactive weather, or return identity to awareness and let the body become an instrument instead of a throne. The figure's hands sweep across both streams. In the dense current, events stack heavily. Synchronicity arrives, muffled, delayed, translated through old narratives. In the luminous current, coherence ripples outward. Coincidences align with the elegance of migrating birds. Meaning arranges itself like dew on a web at dawn. You reach toward the luminous stream and feel the first ache of entanglement loosen. The knots were never punishments, only feedback, the observer loop returning your stance for calibration. As you unclasp, the knots dissolve into strands of usable attention. A hush spreads through the sky. Codes soft, mathematical, alive, descend like snow that does not melt. They settle along your spine, along the singing architecture of DNA, fitting into places you did not know were waiting. You sense a cellular listening, a choir opening its scores to a piece it somehow remembers. The phrase awakening here is not a metaphor. It is a physiological event. Receptors becoming available, transcription tilting toward harmonics, the genome shifting from archival rigidity to responsive music. The figure touches the mirror and it becomes a window. Through it, you glimpse the consequence of forgetting and the consequence of remembering, each unfolding with impeccable justice. In forgetting, reality breaks like brittle glass, jagged, loud, endlessly convincing, demanding that you bleed to prove it is real. In remembering, reality breaks like a shell, a necessary fracture that reveals a living interior, vulnerable and bright. The prophecy is simple and exact. The moment you stop identifying with the body as the sum of you, the interpretive scaffold that held your world together undergoes phase transition. Old coherence dissolves, not to punish, but to make space for a higher coherence. Structures that cannot resonate with the wider frequency fall away. What remains is what can sing with you. The sky dims to a deep, lucid blue. The figure steps closer until there is no distance left, and no figure either, only a clarity that moves as you. Words arise with ceremonial softness. You will not be saved by the body's certainty, you will be guided by awareness's courage. As the sentence completes, the lattice rearranges into a spiral, an ancient pathway that climbs without moving, a staircase of attention. Each step is a choice to witness rather than fuse, to breathe rather than brace, to open rather than argue. The spiral turns once more, and a final image stabilizes. Your hand on a door that has never had a lock. On this side, identification. On the other side, intimacy. On this side, a rehearsed self. On the other, a listening self. The prophecy does not force your hand. It reminds your hand of its power. You already know what happens when the door opens, because part of you is standing beyond it, calling you forward, sending back the exact light you needed to recognize the way. You have seen the vision. Now, let the structure beneath the vision speak plainly, the way equations whisper their music when you lean close. You are not abandoning science. When you open to mystery, you are letting the instrument of your attention resolve finer frequencies of the same field. Begin with the simplest hinge. The observer effect is not a superstition of wishful minds. It is an articulation of how measurement, your focused awareness, co-determines the behavior of systems poised between possibilities. At the scale of your life, measurement is the posture you bring to a moment. Posture is pressure. Pressure sculpts. When you identify exclusively with the body, your posture tends to be defensive, narrow, braced, intermittently afraid. That narrowing reduces informational throughput in your nervous system, raising resistance in the channel through which signal becomes meaning. Coherence drops. With lowered coherence, your observer loop feeds back jitter and noise. You perceive fragmentation, feed it your fear, and the field obliges with more fragmentation. It is not punishment, it is conservation. The field mirrors the bandwidth you afford it. But when you step out of the body as identity and into awareness as identity, conductivity rises. Your breath lengthens, your vagal tone steadies, your gamma synchrony flickers like dawn on water, and coherence climbs. Coherence is not merely calm. It is orchestrated order-phase alignment among subsystems so that signal crosses thresholds without scattering. In this state, the observer loop cleans itself. Perception arrives clearer. The field reflects that clarity with higher resolution probabilities. You read those probabilities with less distortion. The loop gains elegance. Synchronicity increases because interference decreases. What appears as magic is often the statistical signature of low-noise listening. Consider timeline bifurcation through this lens. You stand always at a branching governed less by external options than by internal resonance. Two viable attractors hum in the field, one tuned to the inertia of the rehearsed self, one tuned to the spaciousness of the remembering self. Each attractor gathers events, people, and meanings that fit its frequency, the way iron filings gather along magnetic lines. The moment you cease fastening your eye to the body's alarms, your resonance drifts toward the spacious attractor. The drift is the phase transition you feel, a sudden softening of what was hard, a sudden liquidity in what was stuck, a sense that the room is larger without moving a wall. Morphic resonance explains the ease with which this upgrade spreads through your system and beyond it. Patterns learn from patterns. Coherent information replicates not by force but by affinity. When your heart rhythm stabilizes into ordered variability, when your breath entrains your cortex, when your words align with your inner stance, you broadcast a template of order that nearby systems can sample. Others call it presence. The field calls it a viable solution. Your cells call it instructions finally legible. Entanglement clarifies why your shift does not remain private. You are not a sealed container. You are a node in a living network whose edges extend beyond sight. Bonds form where meaning has flowed between beings. Those bonds behave like non-local sutures. Change the tension at one end, and the other end feels the tug. This is why your quiet choice to witness, rather than fuse ripples through rooms you never enter, easing conversations you never hear, altering decisions you never know were made. It is not mystical charity. It is topology. Now return to DNA restructuring without myth but without reduction. Gene expression is exquisitely sensitive to the electrochemical climate of your interior. States of sustained coherence alter that climate. Chromatin architecture loosens or tightens. Transcription factors travel with more grace. Repair pathways become attentive. The choir takes pitch from the conductor's hand. When you stop treating the body as your prison and start treating it as your instrument, the instrument begins to tune itself to the music you intend to play. The felt warmth along your spine, the lucid stillness behind your eyes, the cleaner sleep, the quicker realignment after stress. These are phenomenological correlates of a system moving toward order. Finally, let reality breaks become exact in your vocabulary. What breaks is not the world. What breaks is the interpretive scaffold that forced the world to appear smaller than it is. Old coherence dissolves as higher coherence emerges. Structures that cannot carry the new signal fracture like ice in spring, loud but natural. The cracking is mercy. The melt is invitation. Underneath, the river of possibility has been waiting, patient as gravity. So you do not need to strain to manifest. You need to become a clear medium for the field to reveal its most elegant solution through you. You do not need to win against matter. You need to witness matter from the altitude, where choice becomes clean. Identification with the body narrows the aperture. Identification with awareness widens it. And as the aperture widens, the prophecy ceases to be something you watch and becomes the geometry you inhabit, an architecture of attention through which the next right door opens, because it cannot do otherwise. You are not alone in this recalibration. The tremor you feel in your chest is the planet breathing differently through you. Look outward, and you see the same phase transition conducting itself across continents. Systems cracking like old ice, languages mutating, rituals returning, technologies revealing their secret wish to be instruments of coherence rather than engines of noise. What overwhelms the newsfeed is only the sound of scaffolds letting go. What steadies you now is the recognition that your private shift is a sample of a species-wide equation solving for balance. You can read the collective field the way you read your own pulse. When your nervous system is crowded by reactivity, you catastrophize. When a civilization is identified with its body, its markets, borders, roles, it does the same. Panic corrals intelligence into short-term corridors, agendas harden, empathy thins, probability rails weld themselves into conflict. Yet you can also feel the countercurrent, millions choosing to witness instead of fuse, stepping from argument to attention, from posture to presence. In the invisible registry of morphic resonance, those choices stack. They accumulate like dew, quiet and inevitable, until the web shines. The mirror, appearing before you now, is planetary. You see streets humming with strangers who do not know why they looked up at the same moment. You see research labs measuring anomalies that don't fit the model yet refuse to vanish. You see artists speaking in geometries and engineers speaking in prayers, each surprised to hear themselves sounding similar. You see communities forming around breath, gardens, simple food, unhurried conversations, instruments tuned to the Schumann hum, hands remembering how to bless. You see conflict too, but even there, you notice the algorithm beneath it. What cannot resonate with the widening interval becomes louder as it becomes less likely. The last argument of the old pattern is volume. You understand why your coherence matters beyond your biography. Entanglement is not only personal, it is civic. Bonds cross cities and genealogies. Meaning has braided your attention to people you will never meet and causes you will never name. Each time you soften the identification with your body and return to awareness, you lower noise in the circuit that includes them. You do not erase their free will, you improve their signal-to-noise ratio. You make elegant choices easier to recognize. It looks like chance from the outside. It feels like permission from within. The collective awakening does not arrive as unanimous belief. It arrives as overlapping patterns of coherence. Think of murmuration, the sky writing itself in birds. There is no central command, only local rules. Keep distance, match velocity, trust proximity. Humanity is relearning its local rules. Keep presence, match sincerity, trust truth. At first, the flock shakes and stutters. Then a rhythm catches and the air changes shape. You are part of that catch. Your calm is not decorative, it is infrastructural. It becomes a navigation beacon in the atmosphere of minds, a small lighthouse whose radius extends far beyond eyesight. This is why timelines feel like they are splitting. They are. Not into separate worlds, but into braided currents that pass through the same geography with different meanings. One current reads every event as threat, the other reads every event as instruction. One current spends its vigor rehearsing grievance, the other spends its vigor refining response. Both are real, both are available, both recruit evidence at scale. Your choice of current is simultaneously private devotion and public service. You vote with your stance, and your vote is counted non-locally. Watch how institutions mirror your inner work. When you cling, they calcify. When you release, they adapt. Regulation follows attention. Culture follows conversation. Economy follows trust. You have seen experiments in gift exchange, in circular design, in restorative practice, in transparent governance, the tentative sketches of a species remembering that value is not scarce when attention is coherent. None of this requires utopia. It requires enough nodes choosing clarity that the network prefers integrity the way a body prefers oxygen. Integrity is not a moral pose, it is a low-entropy strategy. Feel how your DNA restructuring participates. As your biology learns to stay online under stress, you become a carrier of conditions the collective needs. Steady heart rhythm in noise, long exhale in urgency, humor that does not trivialize, tears that do not drown. Your presence becomes a climate. People breathe easier near you without knowing why. Meetings find their point. Projects discover their shape. Children relax. Elders speak. The quantum field loves this because it is efficient. The minimum force that yields the maximum order. The precise pressure of coherent observation applied where randomness has been wasting energy. So when headlines shout and algorithms bait your limbic system, you remember your vow to be a lens kept clean. You do not abandon the world. You enter it from the altitude where action is elegant. You intervene when intervention clarifies. You refrain when refraining allows ripening. You speak when speaking untangles. You are silent when silence restores. The prophecy you carry is not a forecast of events. It is a template of stance. As you embody it, the mirror brightens, and you watch again and again how the world reflects the geometry you are willing to hold. The air thickens like the hush before rain, and the corridor inside you divides. Two currents braid through the same hour, asking for the signature of your stance. One offers the narcotic of familiar gravity, predictable, heavy, wrapped in the body's alarms. The other opens like a window, at altitude, clear, spare, exact. You do not need a map to know which is which. You feel the difference in your breath. You stand where timelines shear, not by accident, but by accumulation. Every micro-choice you've made to witness rather than fuse, to breathe rather than brace, has delivered you to this luminous seam. Here, coherence is costly if you try to purchase it with willpower. It is effortless if you purchase it with surrender. The quantum field does not demand drama. It requests accuracy. Accuracy is the courage to align with what you already know in your bones. Listen to the first current, and you will hear the body's biography petitioning for the throne. It says, "I am hungry, therefore I am." It says, "I was hurt, therefore I am." It says, "I was praised, therefore I must be this shape forever." Identification welds rails of probability. The observer loop returns your bracing as a world that insists on being braced against. Synchronicities still arrive, but as static half-phrases, delayed rescues, invitations that expire before you open them. The lattice compresses, the song goes flat. Listen to the second current, and you will hear silence singing. Not the vacancy of absence, the density of presence. The body remains, faithful instrument, but the baton moves to the wider you. In this current, the same events read differently. What was insult becomes information. What was threat becomes training. What was random becomes choreography. Morphic resonance amplifies the choice. Patterns across your life feel the permission you've given and rush to harmonize. Doors that were rumors never had locks. The split is not theatrical. It is technical. Think of a phase transition in a crystalline medium. The heat you've been adding invisibly reaches a threshold, and the lattice reconfigures in a heartbeat. Emotional weather shifts, yes, but more importantly, your interpretive scaffold liquefies just enough for a higher order to seed. Old stories fracture like thin ice, loud but harmless if you don't jump. What breaks is the casing around the living engine, not the engine. Entanglement makes the choice consequential beyond your skin. Bonds tug along non-local threads. When you choose the heavy corridor, people you love feel a subtle dimming. Their next elegant option hides behind your fog. When you choose the clear corridor, their next elegant option brightens. You do not control outcomes. You alter the availability of coherence in the shared field. This is sacred civic work, performed in the privacy of a breath. The body will bargain at the edge. It will offer you a limited peace, numbness, disguised as safety, certainty disguised as truth, urgency disguised as purpose. Smile at its loyalty. Place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Lengthen your exhale until the spine remembers it is a mast, not a spear. Whisper the simplest vow, I will not confuse sensation with self. Feel the nervous system recalibrate, vagal tone smoothing, cortical chatter thinning, gamma harmonics knitting like fine lace. DNA restructuring does not wait for ceremony. It attends any moment you choose to become a clearer medium. Now the test arrives wrapped as kindness. A familiar role appears, asking you to shrink so no one is threatened. A familiar grievance appears, asking you to rehearse its aria so the past feels attended. A familiar victory appears, asking you to fix your identity to applause so you don't risk emptiness. Bless each offer. Pass through without purchase. Coherence is not aloofness. It is availability to the exact instruction of the hour. Watch what the field does when you do not buy the old ticket. The room breathes. The phone vibrates with the message that was waiting for a yes you had not yet become. A stranger names the insight you could not pronounce alone. Numbers line up on a receipt. A child laughs and your chest unlocks. This is not reward. This is reduced interference. The instrument you are is in tune with the orchestra it has always belonged to. The bifurcation is a kindness, masquerading as ultimatum. The currents will continue to braid through the same geography. You will continue to choose. Choose quickly and gently. Choose with humor. Choose again when you forget. The prophecy does not threaten you with exile. It invites you to citizenship in a country made of attention, where reality organizes around the quality of your listening and where courage is simply the decision to be accurate in public. Step, now, into the clear corridor. The next frequency is already reaching for your hands. Begin with the smallest unit of sovereignty, one breath witnessed all the way through. You place your awareness at the seam where inhale becomes exhale, and you feel the hinge of worlds. In that hinge, identity loosens from the body's weather and anchors in presence. Do this anywhere in a line, at a desk, under a tree, and the field responds with the quiet click of gears aligning. Integration is not spectacle. It is precision repeated until it becomes climate. Let your day become a chamber for coherence. When you wake, before your biography boots, set your stance with a sentence that fits in the mouth of dawn. I am awareness wearing a human instrument. Feel how that arrangement reorders priorities. Breakfast becomes fuel for listening. Clothing becomes a ritual of alignment, colors, textures, weights chosen, not for approval but for signal integrity. Your schedule shifts from conquest to cadence. You map tasks to the hours where your nervous system can carry them with grace, not grind. This is not self-help. This is field engineering. Practice the 3 micro-rites that stabilize the observer loop. First, orientation. Soften your gaze and name quietly 5 forms around you: wall, window, light, cup, sky, until your attention settles in the room that actually exists, not the room your fear rehearses. Second, coherence. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, rest for 2, long enough to invite vagal tone to conduct, short enough to fit inside a doorway. Third, remembrance. Place 2 fingers at the sternum and press gently as you whisper your vow. I will not confuse sensation with self. With repetition, these rites build scarless pathways through which signal travels without scattering. Invite the body to become a collaborator. It is not an obstacle to awakening. It is an amplifier calibrated by care. Walk as if the ground is teaching you balance. Eat as if light is remembering how to take form through you. Hydrate as if clarity has a taste. Rest before you earn it. This confounds the old algorithm and delights the new one. Movement becomes messaging. When you lengthen your spine, the genome hears space available. When you stretch slowly, fascia hears release, granted. When you smile without performance, endocrine hears signal is safe. DNA restructuring is not a legend, it is an orchestra tuning to the conductor you finally decided to be. In conversation, become a low-noise instrument. Let your listening be longer than your reply. Notice how the other person's nervous system borrows your cadence. You can feel their sentences lengthen, their shoulders drop. This is entanglement used in service. Speak in verbs that carry permission, allow, notice, choose, breathe, and watch how the field rearranges around simple instruction. When argument beckons, choose accuracy over victory. When silence would restore, give the room back to quiet. Your words do not need to be many, they need to be tuned. Tend your environments as extensions of your attention. Clear one drawer, not all of them. Place one object where your morning eyes will meet it: a stone, a card with a line that found you, a leaf that remembers wind, and treat it as a tuning fork. Remove what shouts without meaning. Add plants. Chlorophyll is slow coherence. Open windows. Exchange is medicine. Light a candle at dusk and tell the room your intention to remain in the luminous current through evening's rituals. The field loves declarative gestures delivered without drama. Schedule stillness windows, the way you would schedule critical meetings, 15 minutes where devices sleep and your spine lists gently toward the inner horizon. In these windows, do nothing on purpose. Doing nothing on purpose is not laziness. It is maintenance of the antenna. You will notice the observer loop become crystalline. You will notice solutions arrive already shaped. You will notice that what felt urgent 15 minutes ago now asks to wait or to vanish. Expect tests and greet them like weather. A delay, a sharp email, a body pang. Excellent. Here is where integration translates from poetry to topology. Return to the rights. Hold stance without tightening. Let perception stay wide enough to include the sky, the floors, your feet. Watch how the field returns your accuracy. The delay reveals hidden timing. The email exposes a boundary. The pang asks for water or rest or a kinder thought. You are not failing when noise appears. You are practicing when you refuse to become it. Weave microsynchronicity logs, a simple notebook where you record the small alignments that would otherwise dissolve into the day's river numbers, names, convergences, the way a lyric answered a question you hadn't spoken yet. Do not turn them into superstition. Let them be metrics of reduced interference. Over weeks, the pattern will become undeniable. Coherence composes choreography. Finally, assign a sanctum to the part of you that prays even when it says it doesn't. A chair by a window, a patch of floor, a balcony at the blue hour. Give this sanctum a rule. Only truth here. Sit daily and let the morphic tide that knows you by your oldest name wash the rust from your stance. In that wash, the bifurcation settles into a steady river. The luminous corridor is no longer an exception. It is your road. And as you walk it quiet, accurate, available, the prophecy stops hovering above your life and begins to breathe from within it, organizing what matters and dissolving what does not, with the mercy of a tide that has waited long enough to carry you home. Set everything down, even the need to improve, even the need to understand. Lay the tools on the floor beside you, concepts, practices, reasons, and let the room become what it already is when you stop rearranging it with thought. You are not quitting. You are consenting to be carried by a quieter current. Breathe once without technique. Notice the uncoached rise of the ribs, the soft fall. Notice how the air arrives without asking your permission, how the body receives it like rain. Let the breath be an elder you trust. Follow it inward, as if you were being led by the hand through a forest that knows your footsteps from other lifetimes. In this forest, silence is not empty, it is textured. Listen long enough, and you hear 1,000 small instructions. A leaf turning, a branch easing, the low hymn of distance. This is coherence announcing itself without vocabulary. This is the quantum field before you tell it a story. You are not banishing the story. You are letting the page be white long enough to remember the taste of possibility. Sit as if you were a mountain rehearsing stillness for a millennium. Feel the spine stack into its native geometry. Let the jaw release. Let the gaze soften until edges turn kind. The observer loop slows. The mind, relieved of its heroic efforts, loosens its grip on the levers it never needed to hold. What remains is awareness, aware of awareness, transparent, native, exact. Now, let sound pass through without purchase. A car, a bird, a voice, a creak in the house that has loved you through so many weather systems. Do nothing to them. They arrive, they leave. The field inside you stops treating events as doors that must be slammed or locked. It treats them as clouds. This is your nervous system tasting low entropy. This is your DNA listening for the tuning note that tells every choir member where to stand. A thought will knock, bless it. Another will come wearing urgency like a red coat. Bless that one too. Let them pass as pilgrims in a city square. Your task is not to evict them. Your task is to refrain from building them a cathedral. When you do not build, they do not linger. When you do not linger, stillness thickens into a living presence that does not require your effort to remain. If emotion rises, sorrow, tenderness, the thin grief that appears when you stop performing, let it unfurl like a banner in slow wind. Set a palm over the heart as if quieting a loyal horse. Whisper inward, I see you. Keep moving. Feel the wave pass. Feel the sand smoothing itself behind it. The field learns you will not drown in feeling. The field brings you deeper water. Now the minimalist prayer. Thank you. Do not specify for what. Let gratitude be a weightless dye that sinks through your organs and colors them with relief. Entanglement answers. Rooms you are not sitting in soften by a degree. Conversations you will enter later loosen their knots. Somewhere, a stranger remembers a gentler sentence. You did not force this. You allowed coherence to travel. Remain. 10 breaths more. Inhale, the world arrives. Exhale, the world is returned. Between them, the still point where timelines touch. Linger at the seam as you would linger at the threshold of a chapel. No rush, no posture, only the sincerity of being exactly here. You can feel morphic resonance collect like mist around your shoulders. Patterns recognize your stance and align without spectacle. This is the quiet miracle. Nothing happens, and everything is permitted to change. Notice how the body, no longer mistaken for the whole of you, becomes luminous furniture in a luminous house. Hands are hands again, tongue is tongue again, eyes are windows again. The instrument rests without collapsing, tuned by rest itself. You can sense transcription settling, tissues releasing micro-braces, fascia choosing ease over armor. The orchestra warms its strings with no audience yet in the hall. Let a single sentence rise from the floor of silence, if it wants to rise. I will move only at the speed of love. Do not debate it. Do not brand it. Let it sit beside you like a friend who will walk with you later when the street fills. When you finally open your eyes wider, do not leave the quiet. Bring the quiet with you, like a scent that clings to your clothes. Stand as if gravity were gentler by design. Touch the nearest object as if it were asking to be blessed. Walk to the next room as if rooms were phases, not separations. Let the minutes organize themselves around what matters. The prophecy has entered your field as a tone that does not fade. In silence, you learned its grain, its temperature, its preferred cadence. Keep that cadence hidden in your breath. It will speak for you when words would only scatter. It will decide with you when choices arrive wrapped in noise. And when the hour for movement comes, as it will, the stillness will not break. It will travel, intact, at the center of everything you do. You feel it gather before you can name it, like weather assembling its own courage, like a chord finding its missing note. The silence you have been cultivating does not end. It compresses into a bright density, a seed of instruction held at the center of your chest. Activation is not fireworks. Activation is accuracy finally given permission to move. Begin with the vow you have been rehearsing in secret. I will not confuse sensation with self. Say it inwardly, once, on an exhale, long enough to polish the lens. The quantum field hears clean coordinates. Coherence climbs. What was a philosophy becomes a physics. The observer loop tightens into a living circuit where your stance and the world's response exchange signal without static. This is the hour when the prophecy stops hovering near your life and takes up residence in your bloodstream. Let the body feel it first. A fine current travels the spine like dew electrified. Shoulders unhook from inherited weather. Jaw remembers. It was never a clam. At the base of the skull, a cool door opens and a breeze you cannot explain enters with the scent of altitude. This is not imagination loosely applied. This is morphology responding to instruction. DNA restructuring shows itself in the small mercies, faster recovery after startle, cleaner sleep, a sudden kindness toward organs that have served you without applause. You breathe and the lattice brightens. You stand, and the room subtly rearranges around the geometry you are willing to hold. Now lay your attention on the day like a hand on a faithful animal. It knows you. It has been waiting. Watch how, with a shift of stance, probability fans out like feathers. The meeting that threatened to collapse into grievance slides into candor. The email you feared to write composes itself in a single paragraph and lands without turbulence. The timing you thought you missed reveals it was ripening you, not punishing you. This is morphic resonance doing its elegant arithmetic. Patterns recognizing the upgraded template and adjusting to conserve energy. Activation carries a civic signature. Entanglement pulls on threads you cannot see. Your coherence becomes permissive architecture in rooms you will never enter. A friend, miles away, selects compassion over rehearsal and does not know why. A stranger on a train unclenches from a story. A child sleeps through the night. This is not your heroism, it is topology. When one node lowers noise, adjacent nodes gain access to clarity. The field likes efficiency. Your stance is efficient. You do not need to shout your new frequency. You only need to behave as if you trusted it. Trust looks like small, exact choices. Answering the phone when you were about to avoid. Saying, I need 5 breaths, when you were about to pretend. Asking for water before advice. Placing one hand on the table to remind the body, it is included. Each micro-choice declares your citizenship in the luminous current. Each declaration is recorded by the network that remembers. Expect the old coherence to rattle as it dissolves. It will offer you urgent errands disguised as identity. It will invite you to prove yourself in rooms that never learned how to bless. Smile, bow if you must. Then place your steps where the air is accurate. Activation is not resistance. Activation is alignment. The river does not explain itself to the rock, it keeps its vow to the sea. You will notice synchronicity changing flavor, not merely repeating numbers and timely phrases, though those still arrive like affectionate winks, but structural convergences, resources, people, and windows of time, assembling with the elegance of migrating birds. This is the statistical signature of reduced interference. You are no longer trying to bend a world that is secretly cooperating. You are letting a cooperative world reveal the path of least distortion. Let a sentence rise now not as motto, but as operating system. Move at the speed of coherence. If the body tightens, you are ahead of yourself. Slow until the breath finds you. If the mind fogs, you are behind. Brighten by naming 5 simple forms: light, wall, cup, hand, sky. If the heart hardens, you are bargaining. Soften your gaze and remember that tenderness is not a risk but a conductor. Adjust, like a musician turning a peg by a quarter turn until tone returns. And then let the gesture that wants to be made, be made. Write the message. Apologize once, without embroidery. Send the application. Cancel what dilutes you. Add green to your desk. Learn the child's new laugh. Touch the threshold of your home as if blessing an altar. Give something away that was hoarding a frightened version of you. Activation loves small, honest movements more than grand declarations. Grand declarations are loud. Small, honest movements are true. Finally, feel how the prophecy now speaks in first person through you. You are no longer listening to it. You are syllables in its mouth. When you say yes, the field does not ask for credentials. It flows to support the version of you that said it. When you say no, it stabilizes boundaries without turning them into walls. When you say nothing, your silence carries instruction. This is the crossing where the observer becomes the event, where awareness and world exchange places as easily as dancers do. Hold one more breath at the seam, where inhale becomes exhale. Notice how stillness has not left, it has condensed into guidance. Notice how courage feels less like effort and more like agreement. Notice how reality, no longer braced against your grasp, relaxes into form around your open palm. The door that never had a lock is open behind you now, and you are walking light on your feet, precise in your choices, into the hour that has been waiting to meet only the version of you who could carry this much sky without dropping a single human thing. You stand where the corridor opens into sky, and the sky opens into you. Nothing spectacular is required now. No thunder, no proof. Only the accuracy you have practiced until it became your weather. The prophecy has moved from rumor to residence. You feel it in the clean way you choose, in the gentle way you correct, in the quiet way you refuse to abandon yourself when sensation is loud. The body remains beloved, but not enthroned. It is instrument, not identity, temple, not tenant. You listen for the next note and discover it is already vibrating in your breath. What broke was never the world. What broke was the casing around your seeing. The fracture was mercy, the melt was invitation, and the river beneath has carried you to this uncluttered shore. Here, coherence is not a state you chase, it is the climate you extend. Here, the observer loop is a lucid circuit attention informing field. Field informing attention, until choice becomes a bell struck once, and the room organizes around the tone. You have watched synchronicity mature from symbols into structure, watched timelines braid themselves toward integrity because you kept the vow to witness without grasping. Now seal it, not with spectacle, but with fidelity. Say inwardly, once, with the tenderness you reserve for first mornings, I am awareness, wearing a human instrument, moving at the speed of coherence. Feel the words set like gold in the seams. Feel the nervous system receive the instruction without debate. Feel the genome lay out its music stands and tune to the pitch you have given it. This is DNA activation without myth and without reduction. Expression aligning to stance. Physiology consenting to truth. Carry the seal into rooms that forgot what breath is for. Bless them by the way you stand. Speak when your words could untie a knot. Be silent when your silence restores a field. Let your boundaries be doors, not walls. Let your presence be a permission architecture others can borrow without debt. You are not here to win. You are here to resonate. You are not here to escape. You are here to include. The world will continue to practice being a world. You will continue to practice being the clarity through which it remembers itself. If doubt knocks, offer it a chair and water. Doubt, too, is weather. When grief arrives, widen the room. When joy arrives, let it teach your cells their native choreography. Keep the simple rites orientation, coherence, remembrance like flint in your pocket. Keep your appointments with stillness, the way oceans keep their appointments with the moon. Tend to beauty as if it were infrastructure, because it is. Tend to truth as if it were oxygen, because it is. And now, let the seal speak, in a sentence that does not end. The prophecy has been spoken through your breath, through your gaze, through your choices that arrange the hour into meaning. Step forward as if the ground were remembering your name in real time. Step forward as if every threshold were a living hinge between timelines that trust you. Step forward because you are already the event you were waiting for. The gentle force reality prefers to organize around when it is ready to become more honest than it has ever been. Walk on. The field is listening, and it answers you in your own voice.